The Dallas Cowboys pregame show, live from the Star in Frisco, is brought to you by AT&T. Academy, the official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full access to coaches' film and game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl. Subscribe at DallasCowboys.com/Game Pass.
AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, where today the Cowboys return home following what felt like the longest two-game road trip in franchise history as they meet up with the 7-0 Pittsburgh Steelers, the only remaining undefeated team in the NFL. It's Cowboys pregame live here from the Star in Frisco. Kyle Yeoman's with you, soon to be joined by Isaiah Stanback and Barry Church. Things look a little bit different this time around at AT&T Stadium for the Dallas Cowboys than they have over the last couple weeks, especially at the quarterback position. You look at Dak Prescott, first 5 weeks of the season, he was the starter, the franchise quarterback, no surprise there, until his season-ending injury in Week 5 against the Giants. Then you moved on to Andy Dalton. The 10-year NFL veteran took over as the starter for the Cowboys against the Cardinals in Monday Night Football, and then he was hurt a week later against Washington, has not returned since. That brought up Ben DiNucci time in Philadelphia, up in Pennsylvania on Sunday Night Football last week. 180 yards and a couple of fumbles for Ben DiNucci. So this week, the coaching staff made a decision. They're going to move on to their fourth quarterback in 2020 and their third in the last 3 weeks. We're going to break it down for you here on Cowboys Pre-Game Live. And now, Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback. It's an interesting scenario when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys at quarterback. The reports from Tom Pelissero, Garrett Gilbert will be the man behind center calling the shots for the Cowboys and the signal caller for Dallas this evening against a very stout Pittsburgh defense.
Yeah, not only is this a huge game for the Dallas Cowboys, but it's a huge game for Garrett Gilbert out there. I mean, look, if we're being honest, he's putting his resume out there. He's putting his audition tape out there to the Dallas Cowboys to say, look, you guys don't need to go out there and get you a backup quarterback because you got one already here in the organization. So for me, he needs to go out there, play at a high level, perform high, because look, this is his audition. This is his resume. This is his chance to go ahead and be that backup quarterback of the future. So hopefully he's able to play at a high level because the Cowboys need it and he needs it as well.
Well, you talk about, the film, right? We always talk about the eye in the sky don't lie, right? That's what all the NFL guys live by. And as we're talking about, game film, right? Game film is your resume, right? As players, we're, now former players, right? Game film is your resume. So we're talking about Garrett Gilbert going out there and having this responsibility now to be the face of the Dallas Cowboys, because that's what he is this week. He is the face of the Dallas Cowboys. It is a weight to bear. Can he handle that weight? We're going to have to tell.
Well, you look at what Garrett Gilbert brings, maybe other than a Ben DiNucci and a Cooper Rush. We're going to get into that a little bit later, what he brings differently. Well, Dunkin' Donuts brought us something this morning, too. And how about the fire from Dunkin' Donuts? Cowboys Game Day Special, free medium or hot coffee on game day for all of those DD Perk members. And on the Dunkin' app, you can go and get your hands on some Dunkin' Donuts.
I already got my hands on one.
I know you did.
I got my hands on one.
Yeah, you're pretty quick on that. They also have a Veterans Day special coming up as well. One free donut and or actually just one free donut for active servicemen and women and veterans on Veterans Day. So thank you to all of those troops out there who have served and who are currently serving. And Duncan sends a thank you as well. But I talked about bringing it, and Duncan brought it today. But what does Garrett Gilbert bring over a Cooper Rush? And that was the quarterback battle this week.
Yeah, it was a long quarterback battle out there. Both of these two guys going at it all week long to see who can take over for the Dallas Cowboys, which is one of the greatest opportunities you can get, especially at the quarterback position. And I guess they saw from Gilbert what they didn't see from Cooper Rush, and that was the ability to maybe get the ball downfield, maybe be able to spread this offense out a little bit more. So I'm interested to see what Gilbert can do out there for the Dallas Cowboys. He's going against a hellacious defense out there, so it's going to be tough, but I'm excited about the young group.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what the coaches may have decided on this week. But if we're looking from the outside in, I would just say that he has more experience. Yeah. Right? Regardless of his actual game experience, he has more experience watching film. He has more experience facing defenses, making play calls, all those things, right? So I think in a situation where you're going against a defense and an organization such as Pittsburgh Steelers, you might want to use as much vet status as you possibly have in this game.
You also look at what Gilbert really initially made his name at, and that was in Texas. It was a starter for the University of Texas. Then his collegiate career shifted to SMU, and so he was then a part of the Mustangs program just down the road before being picked in the 6th round by then the St. Louis Rams. So now you bring him in, and he's kind of inexperienced even over some of the other guys that were in the hunt with Ben DiNucci and Cooper Rush. He had the fewest amount of NFL regular season passing attempts, but really it comes down to just boiling to holding on to the football.
That's what it comes down to me. I mean, we saw last week out there, Ben DiNucci, it seemed like the lights were just a little bit too big for him out there. I mean, he just seemed like he just didn't have it. He didn't pass the eye test. So for me, Ben DiNucci, he just turned the ball over too much. He kind of just threw the ball whimsily out there. So hopefully Gilbert can play mistake-free or turnover-free football, which we haven't seen since week 1.
Yeah, and DiNucci just wasn't ready. You think about the change of speed in the game that he came from, right? Playing at a lower level of ball. He wasn't even playing primary Division I ball. So you can imagine the jump that he had last week, and his eyes were just deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
So, no disrespect to him. He came out, he gave his best effort, but, you want to go with somebody who has a little bit more experience, as we alluded to, and he can't turn the ball over against this defense. These guys are going to test him. Best believe it, this defense, Coach Tomlin, all those guys, them boys are going to be ready to go. And Gilbert, you better have your twinkle toes ready because you might be on the move.
He went from a couple weeks ago being on the practice squad to being the backup last week. Now he's the starter. Like you said, this is a huge opportunity for Garrett Gilbert in his own right, even though it is a nervous one for Cowboys fans. Here's what he had to say about the chance he's gotten to be the starting quarterback for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, obviously, this is an awesome opportunity. You'd love for it to be under different circumstances. Obviously, hoping Andy gets back as soon as possible. And gets well soon. But I'm excited about it, and I think Cooper's in the same boat. Whose ever name is called on Sunday, we're both very excited about this opportunity, and we're getting ready to win a game. So the two of us are preparing, the best we can together to get ready to go win a football game.
If you start Sunday, what do you think you bring to the team?
I think. I'm here to do the best job I can playing quarterback for this team, right? Like, I haven't been here that long, but I feel great with the playbook. I think that the group that we have around our quarterback room has done a fantastic job preparing me for this. Obviously, start at the top with Kellen and then Nuss and Seneca Wallace and Scott Tolzien. Those guys have done a phenomenal job getting me ready, getting me in tune with the playbook, and so I feel comfortable with that. And I think, I feel like it's my job to go out there and perform and execute our game plan. And so, what I bring to the table, I think that's less important than going out and understanding what my job is and being the best quarterback I can be for this team.
Keeping it simple is the mantra around this quarterback room right now is keep it simple. Let's take care of the football and give your chance for the weapons to make the plays on the outside.
Oh, you got to. You got to take it back to the basics. It all boils down to the basics. And for a young quarterback out there with no experience, it's going to be tough going against a hellacious defense like that. You want to try to play mistake-free football. You want to try to not turn the ball over, not give Ben Roethlisberger more opportunities to go against our defense because we know the struggles they've had this season. So for me, we got to try our hardest. I know it's going to be tough, and it's a lot easier said than done, but we're going to have to play turnover-free football. And we might just have a slight chance. We might.
So you alluded to the keep it simple, right? The old KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. That's what we're going to have to do. And fortunately, but unfortunately, the best remedy and the best asset that this offense is going to have is the run game. But the bad part about the reason why I say unfortunate is because Mike Tomlin kind of knows that's the thing that you have to rely on as well. So our ability to be able to run the ball effectively and efficiently has been slim to none over the past few weeks. And for that reason, we've had some quarterback issues, some depth issues there, and question their ability to be able to come out and perform on that side of the ball. So all the attention is going to be placed on Zeke. It's going to be placed on Pollard. Can we get any kind of movement on this offensive line of the scrimmage? If we can't, it's going to be a long day.
It's going to be a long day, and there's questions around who's going to be at tailback for the Cowboys as well. There was a question on whether or not Ezekiel Elliott was going to play. Seemingly, he should be good to go. We'll hear about more of that coming up here in a minute. But first, let's go out to AT&T Stadium and hear from Nick Eatman for the first time, who's live and setting the scene for us. Nick?
Thank you, Kyle. And yes, I'm here at AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys, even though it may not sound like the home of the Cowboys on every snap. course, lots of black and gold here for the Steelers. They come out definitely when their team's undefeated, but they always travel well, and they haven't been here since 2012. They've never actually won a game here. We'll see what happens here today. They lost the Super Bowl, and they lost a game in 2012. One of, I think, 5 teams that have never won even a preseason game here. So we'll see if that changes. We'll talk about the quarterback position, though. I know you guys have touched on it already, but a big discussion all week about Garrett Gilbert or Cooper Rush and why they decided to go with Garrett Gilbert. Now, some might say Cooper Rush has been here a lot more, and he understands Kellen Moore's offense a little bit, having been the backup the last few years, but Garrett Gilbert, much taller guy, stronger arm, and I think the Cowboys like the way that he picks up offenses. He's been around the league since 2014, bounced around different teams on practice squads, and he's certainly learned how to grasp things quickly, which is what he's done here in the last 3 to 4 weeks since being with the Cowboys. And if you think he hasn't played football, yes, just 6 career passes in the NFL, but he also played for the Alliance of American Football, the AAF, now defunct league. But he's the all-time leading passer in that league. More than 2,000 passing yards in those 8 games for the Orlando Apollos. Now, I don't think the Steelers are going to be too concerned about it, but still, he's played well when he's given the opportunity, even though in a league that doesn't exist anymore. We'll see if it can translate here to the NFL. Kyle, back to you.
Thank you very much, Nick. And it is going to be interesting to see how the Cowboys do adjust with a new quarterback back there, Nate Newton, 6-time Pro Bowler. And Nate, of course, from an offensive line standpoint, things change week to week regardless, especially this year for the Cowboys, if we want to point that out. But whenever it comes to having a guy like that who is a little inexperienced when it comes to NFL reps, what's different from an offensive perspective?
Nothing. I wish I could say a lot changed, but we have to be aware of what's going on at all times. We have to play great situational football. We have to especially be aware of the run and pass defensive blitzes. We have to pick them up to give these young guys opportunity to get the ball out of their hand, and we pray as an offensive line that they would get the ball out of their hands.
So does it help the fact that Tyler Biadasz has now kind of established himself as the starting center, even as a rookie? You also have Zach Martin and Connor Williams back for a second week in a row. Do you think having a little bit of continuity there is going to help out Garrett Gilbert in the long run?
Kyle, that's everything, friend. That's everything, having those guys in the middle. If your middle is solid, then your quarterback can step up and move around, and it gives him less anxiety, I should say. And if he has the less anxiety he has, the comfortable he can get, the quicker he can get the ball out, and the receivers will be happy.
It has been confirmed that it is Garrett Gilbert that will start at quarterback over Cooper Rush. Those two are the 2 quarterbacks that are active. Let's look at some of the inactives today for the Cowboys, one of which a quarterback right up at the top of the list. Ben DiNucci goes from being the starter last week to inactive this week. Some other notable names, Shewu Alanalua, who was pulled up from the practice squad, a rookie undrafted free agent out of TCU, somebody who was pulled up for depth at the running back position. That's a pretty good sign that Ezekiel Elliott is ready to go and will play significant snaps in this one. And then the last one was Bradley and I still wanted to see Bradley and I play a little bit. But what do you think about this inactive list?
Bradley and I. That is the guy we need in the running back with TCU. I'm glad he's on the inactive list. That means Zeke is back. That means Tony is ready to go. But Bradley we need to get him going. We need to see can this kid play NFL football.
It is one of those types of years where you get to see some of the young talent in your franchise and figure out exactly what you have back there depth-wise. But Zeke is ready to play as he is 8th in rushing yards in the NFL this season. That's going to pay dividends in the game plan this week.
Oh, it definitely is, man. What we have to do is Zeke, get over the fumbling, get it out of your head, because you're a big part of what's happening here. If he has a great game, Zeke, if you have a great game, our quarterbacks would be all right. If you don't, and Tony can't get it going, then we're looking at a quarterbacks that have got to throw 40 times. And against this Steelers teams who got 30 sacks, it ain't going to be nice.
With it being a lingering hamstring injury with Ezekiel Elliott, do you see more snaps kind of pushed in the way of Tony Pollard, or is he still going to be your bell cow?
If Zeke come in and running and feeling good and he's bouncing in and out, you don't worry about it. But if he have one hitch and he's giddy up, you got to put Tony in there, man, and let him run. And plus, we want to see what Tony can do anyway.
Yeah, you want to see what Tony can do. We saw what Zeke could do against the Steelers his first time around. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later on, as he had one of the best games of his career against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this is a historic battle between 2 inter-conference rivals. You look at the Cowboys and the Steelers, the 2 wins winningest teams in the Super Bowl era by 1/100th of a point percentage-wise. Between the two, you see the success that they've had in terms of Super Bowls. Also, the only two teams to meet in the Super Bowl a total of 3 times. And Nate, you were a part of some of those Super Bowls. So overall, just kind of tell me what it's like to be a part of a rivalry like this, where there's no geographical rivalry, but there's a ton of football in it.
You know what, Kyle? I really wish we were winning. I really wish we was like 5-2 or 6-1, so it can be a true giddy-up game. But right about now, the Steelers has the upper hand. They're 7-0, we 2 and whatever, and they're going to be coming at us. We're the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm not pulling our chain. Anybody versus the Dallas Cowboys is going to be a dogfight, and they're going to be trying to get at us. Coach Tomlin is going to be trying to get his troops ready to go to get after us.
Well, in reversing that, do you think it's the other way around for the Cowboys, looking at this Steelers program and saying, hey, they're undefeated on the season? Is this a chance to show yourself that even in a big-time rivalry game like this, you can still get a win?
It don't matter how young or how old you are. When you're playing against a team that's undefeated and has a history like the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to be ready. You know your assignments. You're going to do a little extra film work to keep yourself going. These guys will be ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Last year was just the 5th time in the past 30 seasons that neither one of these two organizations made the playoffs. It looks like one of them's making the playoffs this year. Cowboys may make the playoffs, too. They're still at least in the hunt, no matter how much you don't want to hear that. They're still technically in the hunt. We're going to go and check on with Danny Sarek. Danny Sarek joins us and tells us just how the first half of the season has gone for the Cowboys.
At the beginning of the year, nobody expected to be where we are today, Cowboys included. They hired Mike McCarthy as their new head coach in January, drafted some highly skilled players in April, in addition to a handful of off-season veteran acquisitions. On paper, this was not a team expected to start 2-6. Yet, here we are. In a division where every team is struggling to string wins together, every game is a must-win. Injuries have plagued this Cowboys team, affecting a starter in almost every position. However, running back Ezekiel Elliott says injuries are not an excuse for the position the Cowboys have put themselves in at 2-6.
I mean, we're 2-6, so obviously been tough. But, can't really use, this is football, we can't really use injuries and guys rotating in and out as an excuse. Every week we have one job, and that's go win a ball game, and so we just got to figure that out.
We still have a lot to play for. I mean, look, our division, is still right there. And, it starts, obviously, we haven't had the start that we all envisioned, but it's still right there in front of us. And I think, more importantly, we're building a culture here, and, it's up to the older guys to keep everyone locked in and just show how important each one of these games is week to week.
I don't think these past couple of weeks we haven't really scored any points as far as getting in the end zone for 7 or 6, if you will. And I feel like we take a huge look at ourselves and a huge step back just by looking in the mirror and trying to figure out what it is that we can do. And I think if we all do that, we'll figure it out eventually.
Dallas hasn't scored a touchdown in their last 2 weeks. In fact, the Cowboys have scored just 1 touchdown in their last 3, all of which they've had to play without starting quarterback Dak Prescott, who suffered a season-ending ankle injury in Week 5. The Cowboys' offense will have its work cut out for them going up against the Steelers' disruptive defense, especially with a backup quarterback under center.
They're disciplined in how they play their defense. They've been doing it there for a long time, and you can just see those guys are very dialed in to what their job responsibilities are, and it's going to take everyone. This is a tough group, obviously a good football team, but we're really excited for the challenge, and it's going to take us at our highest level to go out there and execute.
Pittsburgh is the only undefeated team in the league and boasts a top 5 defense. They've recorded 10 interceptions in just 7 games. That means the margin of error for the Cowboys offense is slim to none. Keep in mind, their Achilles heel all year long has been turnovers. Dallas has a -11 turnover ratio, which is the worst in the league. It won't be easy against such a stout defense, but the priority for this Cowboys offense this week needs to be ball security. And they also need to figure out a way to start putting points on the board, because it's hard to win football games if you're not scoring touchdowns. Kyle.
Thank you very much, Danny. And, of course, putting this season and this matchup into perspective for the Cowboys, they're going up against what It's not quite the steel curtain, but it's pretty darn close to what the Steelers have done through the first 7 games of the season, undefeated. You talk about turnovers, sacks, rushing yards, passing yards. They're in the top 5 of almost every single category in the entire defensive side of the football. This is a team that doesn't seem to have a huge weakness on that side, but is there a weakness to this defense, Nate?
No, they got Truitt in the middle. They got Bud, Dupree, and Watts on the outside. They got great linebackers. They got what's the kid in the backfield, defensive backfield, Mika Fitzpatrick. I mean, they got a lot of guys that you can just go on and on and on talking about. So there's no weakness. They play great team defense, and they got great team speed.
Yeah, I would say the weakness is, we talked about earlier, Nate, when they're not on the field. You know what I'm saying? That's probably the weakest you ever see them. But, these guys are, you just mentioned all their personnel. Their personnel is awesome, right? These guys are good on paper. They're showing up and playing. The part that's most dangerous about these guys is not only are they talented, but they're disciplined. Right, they're coached really well. They're where they're supposed to be. They're doing their assignments. They're not trying to do more than what's asked of them, and they play together. You can tell that these guys are in sync. They have a lot of great symmetry. That's the most dangerous part because you're not going to find them out of position.
This is a top 5 defense all season long. Over the last 3 weeks, this has been a bottom 3 offense for the Cowboys in terms of really what they brought to the table following the Dak Prescott injury. But how do you expect this offense will slow down and counteract this defense, especially the pass rush?
I just think that you have to take your time going in and out of the huddle. You have to run. You have to take the air out of the ball, is what we call it. Yeah. And you try to control time possession either through moving a little bit slower, getting up to the line, taking your time, snapping it and late into the count, and give yourself opportunity to see what you're looking at and execute.
I think the only way that this team is that the Cowboys are successful against the Steelers today is if on the offense side of the ball we just bully them. Right, and that's a tall order against this team that's so physical and is so tenacious. But I think when you're facing a team with that characteristic, with that demeanor, you have to meet them where they're at, right? And if they're tough and if they're vicious and they're physical, if you come out them and you take over that aspect of the game where they feel like they're most dominant, it's a shock. Right, and when their teams are shocked, then guess what? Then you have a little question mark in their head, and that's when you have some progress.
Man, we take a look at one of the biggest what-ifs in NFL, or I guess Cowboys draft history. A lot of Cowboys fans think that man should have a star on the side of his helmet. He's had 41 sacks. He's got 6.5 this year. He is firmly in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, a 2-time Pro Bowler at this point, just 3 years of eligibility, now 4 years into his career. What does T.J. Watt bring that's going to make this matchup so tough for this offensive line?
I tell you what, man, he's a Sports Illustrated, man. He's the master of the sack. He says he has it down to a science, but what makes him so special is his quickness, his power, ability to turn power into speed, tenacious pass rush, 1,001 moves. Hey, he's ready to go, man.
Yeah, I mean, he has a high motor. I mean, you just mentioned that, all the things that he has at his discretion, all his ammo that he has, he's going to bring it, right? He's going to use the whole black book, right? He's going to keep looking back there, go back there into the index and find another move to come at you with. But he's going to keep coming. And that's one thing that you know as an offensive lineman that you're going to deal with this guy all day. Not only that, you think about our tight ends like Schultz and some of these guys, he's going to drop out in coverage as well. These guys run a lot of zone blitz, so you're going to find him not only coming on the rush, but he's also going to find him 3 to 5 yards deep playing coverage.
One of the most versatile players in the NFL on the defensive side of the football. And then, not to mention, you have to game plan around the pass rush. You have to for the Cowboys. It's going to be a big game for Irving on the left side and Terrence Steele notably on the right side of trying to slow these guys down. Game plan-wise, that's who you plan for. Reverse that. Game plan-wise for those guys planning against the Cowboys, it's slowing down Ezekiel Elliott. Here's what Cameron Hayward had to say on slowing down the star tailback who hasn't gotten off to the best start this year.
We got to continue to improve on that. We're dealing with a heck of a back this week. Zeke is, that guy. He is the premier running back in our league. So we got to make sure guys tackle well. We're in our gaps. And then when one guy misses, we have another 3 guys ready to attack.
Hey, Cam, what does it mean to have Mike Tomlin, who now has the most regular season wins of any black head coach after the Ravens game? What does that mean to you to play for him? And do you think he deserves more credit for what he's been able to do with your team and your locker room, especially in the last 3 or 4 seasons?
Yeah, I think he's not just a great black head coach. He's a great head coach. It's one thing to be the all-time winningest black head coach, but this dude deserves more than enough credit to never have a losing season, to get the most out of his players. It's not just first rounders that have wound up playing great here. He's had, 5th, 6th undrafted guys who have done well. And I know a lot of people like to say he inherited a great team. Think about the other teams, other people have inherited great teams. Think about, the basketball teams that, Phil Jackson would, incorporate or take over. That's not a shot at him, but, when you are able to lead a group of men and lead them the right way, that says a lot about the type of coach you are.
Hayward very complimentary of his head coach, and for good reason. You look at these two familiar faces, 5th all-time meeting. The last time these two were in AT&T Stadium at the same time, they were competing for a Super Bowl title. That was the only win that Mike McCarthy has had against Mike Tomlin in the Battle of the Mikes here at AT&T Stadium today. But you look at both of these head coaches. We just heard about Mike Tomlin, now the winningest black head coach in football history. But I think Cameron put it very well. He's not just a great black head coach. He is a fantastic head coach overall, and he brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, he does. He brings a lot to this table, and Cameron Hayward hit it right on the nail. I mean, he's not only just a great black coach, but a great coach overall. And for me, this matchup, it's going to be tough because both of these coaches, they've been to the top. They've been to the top of the mountain, and they've won. Tomlin has won it twice, but McCarthy has won it once, and I feel like throughout their coaching tenures, there's always been a stretch run where their teams have always been respectable, always been committed, and always been out there just battling, and it's hard to take these guys out. But for me, excluding this year, because, Mike McCarthy, he lost a lot of All-Pros, so I can't really count it against him on that one. But overall, I got to go with Mike Tomlin on this one. I mean, a couple years ago, he had lost Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Big Ben Roethlisberger, and he had a guy at quarterback by the name of Duck Hodges lead these guys out there, and they were still able to put out competitive football. And I think they ended up finishing 8-8, if I don't believe. So for me, I just got to go with Mike Tomlin, but this is a tough one. Both of these coaches are great.
I believe both coaches are great, but it's obvious Coach Tomlin. I mean, a leader of men. It's one thing to have a team full of stars. It's one thing to have them to believe in you as a coach, leading those stars. And that's what Tomlin has done consistently. Never a losing year. And I always have had a diva quarterback in Big Ben. Brown as a diva receiver. Bell as a diva running back. The list goes on and on and on of diva players that he's been able to control and get it into his system and play well for him.
Picking a diva quarterback out of Big Ben. I see you over there. You're exactly right, though. When it comes to Mike Tomlin, he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. 8-8 last year while losing Big Ben and losing Mason Rudolph in the same season, going with Duck Hodges. They haven't had a losing season in 16 years. And Mike Tomlin, of course, hasn't been there that long, but he's still had just as much success. Here's what he had to say about the Dallas situation and what he's assessed heading into the week.
And then we're preparing with an edge as we prepare to go to Dallas and face those guys in their venue. For us, looking at them, Dallas is a team that's lost, obviously, their franchise quarterback, and us being a group that has been in a similar circumstances of late. As I watched the tape, I got a feeling for what's transpiring there. Initially, there's probably a period of shock where, you're dealing with the reality that you don't have your guy. And then you go about formulating a personality that's going to allow you to develop a winning formula. And when I look at their game specifically against the Philadelphia Eagles last week, that's what I see. I see a defense that got off the bus that was turnover driven, that was focused on getting the ball. And much like we were a year ago when we were playing with Mason and Duck, we realized that we had to gain a possession. We realized that was the best way to support a young or an inexperienced quarterback. And the 4 turnovers against Philadelphia, the sack, fumble, the strip, and the 2 interceptions by the quality young corner in Diggs, I thought really captured my attention in that regard. So we got to work with an edge in terms of protection of the football. We got to understand that that's going to be a component of their winning formula. And so we better take care of the ball. We had a similar discussion last week in preparation for Baltimore. We talked about it and we worked at it all week, but we turned the ball over early in the game when they took it from Chase Claypool. And so we got to continue to grow in that area. It is important, and it's particularly important, I think, in terms of the potential development of this matchup. That's the first thing that needs to be said. And on the other side of the ball, we learn to live with our known commodities and really work our tails off to highlight them and lean on them. And so, we're preparing with the understanding that, man, we got to deal with Ezekiel Elliott this weekend. And we understand what that means. And we're also coming off of a performance where we bled and bled badly in the run. And so we better work with some urgency and an edge in that regard. Got a lot of respect for Ezekiel Elliott. He's an elite running back, arguably the best in the business, man. His vision, his balance, his power on contact. Spent some time this summer, man, looking at some of those guys, knowing that we were playing the likes of Ezekiel Elliott and Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry and others. And this guy is as good as advertised. We got our hands full there.
You can hear the emphasis and the respect that Mike Tomlin put on Ezekiel Elliott this week. And you talk about his first game against the Steelers in his career, this being the second. His first one went quite to plan. It was one of his best games of his career, most scrimmage yards he's ever had in a game, had 3 touchdowns, 209 yards total. And you talk about one of the more exciting games ever in a 35-30 win up at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. But what is different this time around? Whenever it comes to Ezekiel Elliott, he has not been the same Zeke this year. You can blame it on the offensive line. You can blame it on a bevy of things. But what is it specifically that has held Zeke back?
Yeah, he's not been the same guy since 2016. And I was on that 2016 team when we went up to Pittsburgh and played. And I think the biggest difference between him back then and him now is just the explosiveness, the suddenness, just the hitting the gap with 100 miles an hour. I mean, when he took that screen pass in Pittsburgh, I think he took about 85 yards.
Yes.
He outran DBs. At the time, he outran Shazier, who was one of the fastest linebackers in the NFL at the time. So for me, he'll still give you that ground and pound. He'll still give you that forward lean after each individual run, but we're just missing those splash plays, those humongous highlight reel plays that we were accustomed to seeing back in 2016.
I agree with you 100%. Stop with the ground and pound. With Zeke used to look for the home run. And I'm not saying he can go 65 like he used to, but he can go 35 or 40. You can't hit up in there every time thinking you're going to run over a 300-pounder. Yeah. That ain't happening. If Zeke just keep his head up, go back, he's got good eyes. He makes good cuts. Go back to looking to sometime hitting that home run. And yes, 1,000 cuts is what we need to apply to their defense and make them bleed, baby. Don't say it, make them bleed.
Pulling it straight from the Mike Tomlin vocabulary book there, Nate. I like that. But when you look at the offensive line from 2016, 4 of those 5 guys that started that game are not here anymore, at least not this season. The only one there is Zach Martin, and I think Ezekiel Elliott this week is just happy to look in front of him and see the same offensive line he saw last week at this point in the season. So overall, you look at the changes, they're plenty for both the offense and the offensive line and Ezekiel Elliott. Here's what he had to say about the challenge that lies ahead.
I think Mike Tomlin told us today that they've got their eye on you for the game plan. You've heard that plenty throughout your career, but how can you make them regret that despite all of the injuries you've got on the line and at quarterback?
Just by not trying to do too much, just staying disciplined to my reads and landmarks, and like I said, not trying to do too much, and just kind of have like a chop wood mentality, and just kind of chip away with my runs.
And going through film this week, what stands out about T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree and the Steelers linebacker core, and how do you think they complement one another?
I mean, they got a great front seven. They got anchored down in the middle, Hayward, and can't think of the other guy's name. And then they got, like you said, Watt and Dupree on the outside. And I mean, they're high energy, high effort. They're fast, quick twitch. They play hard. Very skilled players through that linebacker group. And so I mean, we just had to stay disciplined and do our best to slow those guys down.
It's not the end-all, be-all, but are you surprised you haven't rushed for 100 yards this season?
I mean, yeah, I am a little surprised, but just gotta figure this thing out.
Has it been harder each week to try to figure it out? I mean, there's so many variables that goes into why you guys have struggled at times, but is that the difficult part for you?
I mean, honestly, it's not really something I'm worried about right now. I'm more worried about us winning football games. Not really. I could care less about individual achievements and stats right now. We're 2-6. So, I mean, my main focus right now is just trying to win a football game.
Lots of pressure on Ezekiel Elliott this week to get the offense back on track, averaging just over 7 points per game since the injury to Dak Prescott. And a lot of that pressure is on the shoulders of 21. In a season like this where nothing necessarily has gone to plan for the Dallas Cowboys, it sure presents its challenges, but it also presents opportunity. And Rob Phillips has more on the opportunity to see some young guys get some playing time in the second half of the season.
Expect the unexpected. That's what the 2020 season has taught the Dallas Cowboys. So many injuries, so many lineup changes. Young players having to step up in key spots. The second half of the season begins Sunday against the Steelers. As the Cowboys move down the stretch, still clinging to the NFC East race at 2-6, here are 3 players to watch. Tyler Biadasz. The rookie has started the last 4 games at center, including last week against Philly, despite Joe Looney's return from injured reserve. Head coach Mike McCarthy values continuity on the offensive line. Injuries have made that next to impossible. But Biadasz has done a solid job handling the communication up front, and he's tried to pattern himself like another ex-Wisconsin Badger. Former Cowboys Pro Bowl center Travis Frederick. Next up, Bradley Anae. The rookie pass rusher has only 6 defensive snaps all season, but more snaps are open now that the Cowboys have traded Everson Griffin to Detroit. Anae was an All-American at Utah. His biggest strengths are technique and motor, relentless getting after the quarterback. With that type of approach, he should get on the field sooner or later. And finally, second-year running back Tony Pollard. Everybody knows Zeke Elliott is the featured rusher in Dallas. But with the Cowboys making yet another lineup change at quarterback this week, the offense will need production from both backs. Pollard was terrific against the Eagles, decisive and explosive with 7 carries for a season-high 40 yards. He and Zeke pushed Dallas to its second highest rushing total of the season, 133 yards.
For DallasCowboys.com, I'm Rob Phillips.
And, of course, Rob Phillips doing some big work, looking down the depth chart a little bit. Some of those guys not even active this week whenever it comes to the Cowboys. And you want to see that growth from a team, especially in a year like this one where things haven't gone to plan overall. But he named a couple of guys. Who are y'all's guys that could potentially show up on the second half of the year, Nate?
I tell you what, man, Biadasz is bringing that thing. He calling plays. You know, he checking when the quarterback check. He probably checking for the quarterback. Biadasz is bringing that thing, man. And then Gallimore. That's the big deal. I got to see what Gallimore can do because he was an upfield guy at Oklahoma. He was bringing thunder. We watched him in the Senior Bowl, man, bringing it down here. Now they got him catching blocks. He got to adjust. He got to get better, but he will improve, man, Gallimore.
All right, my selection is going to be Diggs, right? Okay. Diggs, because we saw him show up last week, right? Diggs showed up a little bit last week. He got the 2 picks, got a couple give-me plays, right? But I'm looking forward to seeing him step up in man coverage and put his hands on somebody. You know how they do it, BC. When these cornerbacks, these guys, especially at his size, he's faced the best that the business has to throw at him, right? So now everybody else is at layup. Come out there, put your hands on them, stop these guys from getting these free releases and running by you like they've been doing for a good portion of the year. You can play ball. Put defense and go at the line of scrimmage.
I love it. I love your pick. And for me, I'm going to stay in the secondary. You know I'm a defensive guy. You know I'm a secondary guy.
Stay true to him.
So I got to stay true, and I got to specifically go at Donovan Wilson, the safety for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, look, he's in the same type of situation that Garrett Gilbert's in right now. He's trying to prove to this organization that they don't need to go out there and get the Earl Thomases. They don't need to go out there and get the Eric Reeds. You got what you need at safety right here. So for him, this is another audition to go out there. We saw what he did last week with the pressure on Carson Wentz, got the sack, forced fumble, and recover fumble. So hopefully he can keep that continuing for the rest of the season. I'm looking forward to you, big dog.
I think you look at the turnovers that were forced last week. That was a huge key for the Cowboys. You had the one with Wilson. You had the 2 with Trayvon Diggs. Diggs, the first rookie in Cowboys history, or at least in the past decade for the Cowboys to have a multi-interception game since Sean Lee did it last year. Let's hear from Trayvon Diggs and what he had to say and kind of the mindset and the expectedness that he's seen this season in the NFL.
Honestly, this is exactly what I expected. You know, everyone going out there competing. It's professional, you know, it's like it's NFL. So, you know, you got to be locked in, and it's exactly what I expected. So, you know, I'm just taking on the challenge.
Did you spend more time watching the picks or watching the mistakes that you were talking about?
I typically like to watch the mistakes. I like to watch the things that I do wrong. Making a play on the ball, catching the ball interception, yes, it's great, but it's things that I need to work on and get better. I'm looking for things to do to get better every day. When I go into practice, I want to work on something. So it's good and all. Caught an interception, but I'm looking for things to get better at.
What are those things do you think you need to get better at?
Just staying more disciplined, getting more used to, how the quarterback releasing the ball, like the timing on things, and, just staying in phase, just little stuff, and, just little stuff that, I practice every day, just keep practicing, keep going at it, not giving up, and just keep going, and, I'm going to get it.
What's the challenge this week with the Steelers and their passing game?
Future Hall of Fame quarterback. They got good outside receivers, and it's going to be a good matchup. It's going to be a good test for us. Everybody just going out there and competing. So this is a good offense. Undefeated team. So we just got to go out there and compete.
It was a big game for Trayvon Diggs last week, 2 interceptions, and really we kind of saw what the rookie can do in terms of the ball skills that he has. And Pittsburgh was very complimentary of what he brought to the table from a DB perspective. But what are some things that he did really well last week that he can build upon heading into the rest of his rookie year?
Well, I'll tell you, Kyle, it's simple what he did. He basically listened to what we had to say on the pregame live show. We told him, look, Carson Wentz is a walking turnover, and he will throw you the football. And what he was able to do simply was catch it. I mean, he had 2 great interceptions, the over-the-shoulder one on a deep pass. He had a diving toe tap interception on that last one. So this is a phenomenal player who's only getting better as the season progresses. But I'll tell you what I liked most about his game is that he has a short-term memory. The guy, we've seen him have ups and downs. We've seen him get beat, but he doesn't hold his head down. He doesn't law and defeat or anything like that. He keeps fighting. He keeps going out there. He keeps competing, and he makes it hard for these receivers. And that's a guy that you want on your team, and that's a guy that you can go to war with.
Well, let's talk about the downs a little bit. Because there's been plenty of those whenever it comes to Trayvon Diggs this season. He is a rookie.
Yes.
There's things to grow on. But what are those things to grow on from a DB that has shown a very high ceiling but hasn't gotten there yet?
So there's 2 things I want to focus on when we talk about Trayvon Diggs' game. And the first one is at the line of scrimmage. Now, too many times we've seen Trayvon Diggs out there, when he gets in his stance, he's doing too much reaching and too much lunging. And when you do that, your feet, they're basically caught in cement. You can't move. And receivers are too good in this NFL. They'll make you miss real quick and get an easy reception. So what I want to see from Trayvon Diggs, I want to see when he's pressing, when he wants to get aggressive, when he wants to be in the face of these receivers, I want him to move his feet as well. Don't just go out there and lunge and jam thinking this is college and you're going to get away with it, because you're not. You're going to have to mirror that receiver. Move side to side with him, mirror his movements, and then once he releases and he goes about his route, that's when you want to stick your hand out. That's when you want to get your jam on him and reroute. Now, the other thing I want him to implement in his game is he has to get better with his eyes. Too many times we've seen this guy, when he's in man-to-man coverage, he's distracted by too many other things, whether it be the backfield, run play action, or whether it be other routes developing around him. When you're in the NFL and you're in man-to-man, you need to be focused, laser-like focused on that receiver. And if he goes to the bathroom, you should be out there waiting for him with a towel to dry his hands off. So Trayvon Diggs, if you're able to do those 2 things, implement those into your game, the Cowboys might have a star at the corner in the future.
I think it's somebody that you can definitely look at to be one of those guys in the future that are a cornerstone for your defense. He's going to have another tough task on the docket this week. You talk about the weapons that the Steelers have. Juju Smith-Schuster, even Deontay Johnson's had a fantastic year. Chase Claypool, the rookie out of Notre Dame, rookie on rookie there. That should be interesting to watch. Indeed. But really it all starts with Big Ben. And Ben Roethlisberger. Let's hear what he had to say heading into this matchup, and a familiar face that the Cowboys have seen quite some time.
Mike Tomlin compared Dallas's D, at least in the Philly game, to your defense last year as far as ball hawking. Just wondering, in the tape you've seen so far, what you've seen.
Absolutely. We just got done watching some stuff, Coach breaking it down for us. And obviously they're not like last week where Baltimore shows all kinds of different blitzes and looks and things like that. They have 4 guys with their hand in the dirt that are getting after the quarterback, after the ball, wherever it is. They might add a linebacker here and there, but really they count their front 4 to get after the quarterback, especially in the pass game. And it's not just getting a sack. I think that's good for them, but they're going for the ball. They're going for a strip sack. And so just trying to be aware of that, and me trying to keep 2 hands on the ball, not giving it away will be important. And then the secondary. I mean, you watch, Diggs get his first 2 interceptions last week. I mean, looking like a wide receiver making those plays. So they're a team that definitely is aware of the ball and try to make that play, the good play, even better by turning it over.
Ben, you've been doing this for a long time. I think a few guys have said. I just want to know, when you have a defense that you take to the stadium every Sunday that's doing what yours is in terms of attacking quarterbacks and creating havoc and turnovers and short fields for you guys, what's your mindset as a quarterback going into the game as far as how you want to execute and what your priorities are, given your defense is going to hold down the other side?
Yeah, it gives you a lot of freedom. You know that your mistakes aren't going to be as magnified because they're most likely going to stop them or get the ball back. It's a lot like how when I first came to the league, you could just play more free because you know what your defense is going to give you. We turned the ball over early in that game, and we weren't doing anything in the first half offensively, and yet our defense was able to hold a really good offense, keep the game close, and then they created turnovers for us. And when we got that turnover in the second half, the interception, we knew at that moment like that we need to do something offensively. Like we have to kind of turn this thing around because they carried us to that point. But that's what makes teams special, is that we were able in the second half to turn it on offensively. We carry each other, special teams as well. So that's what makes teams special, is when you can count on each other through the good and the bad and just rely and trust on each other, because it's not always going to be perfect both sides of the ball. But going into every week, we as an offense, I know as a quarterback, we enjoy knowing what we have over there.
It has been quite the career for Ben Roethlisberger as you take a look at some of his 2020 stats. A career high, 15 touchdown, 4 interception, TD interception ratio, and he has been lighting it up with a lot of those big-time weapons that we just talked about a moment ago. You mentioned Ben Roethlisberger. He's had weapons throughout his career. I mean, you go back to Hines Ward, and you talk about even Antonio Brown. He was one of the ones that made Antonio Brown into what he was. Well, now he's doing the same thing with Juju Smith-Schuster and with Chase Claypool. But what weapon scares you the most, guys, whenever it comes to this Steelers offense?
Well, for me, I mean, they got a litany of weapons out there. For me, I'm going to have to say their most forceful weapon out there and is their most important player, which is Big Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, when you got a guy out there who, no matter what happens, he could throw 3 interceptions, but as a team, you believe that you have the chance to win with that guy being out there. I mean, that boosts confidence to the rest of your team, and that's boosts the team overall. So for me, their most dangerous weapon, it's got to be Big Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay, I see you going with the Big Ben clock. Okay, I'm going to go ahead with my guy, Eric Ebron.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, right? He's one of the undervalued players on this team because all the weapons that they have a receiver. But when you take the personnel they have on offense, when you take the formations that these guys come out with, and then you look at the matchups that they have against, when you look at the matchups you're going against our linebackers, it is not a recipe for success for the Cowboys. I think Ebron goes off today because of the matchups.
Okay. James Conner, running back.
James Conner.
Bruh, this dude done rushed the ball over 100 times. That is your guy.
Okay.
He makes it go, bruh. He's the heartthrob, believe me.
Okay. So we're taking the only team in the NFL that has 3 receivers with at least 20 receptions and 5 touchdowns, and we're talking about the tight end and the running back as the scariest weapons. I think that's a worrisome part about this.
Yeah. Who do you cover, bruh?
That's exactly
who do you cover.
Who do you cover? And I think it starts whenever you start with Big Ben and you have the receivers that are out wide. Things are tough for the secondary, especially with those wide receivers. How do you slow them down?
Well, this is going to be a tough one. And I always say this when I'm speaking about our defense, but it's going to be a lot easier said than done. I mean, when you got a guy in Big Ben who's been in the league 15 plus years, it's going to be hard to basically get him off his game. But what they're going to have to do as a secondary, they're going to have to disguise their intentions. Disguise your blitzes, disguise your coverages, because if you give this guy the study guide to the test, he's going to pretty much destroy your whole defense. He's going to pick you apart from snap 1 to the very last snap. So whatever you got to do, make sure you disguise your intentions. Give your defensive line an extra second to kind of get to that quarterback and affect him. But like I said, the chips are stacked tall in this one, and it's going to be difficult.
That was a long pause you had. What I believe that they have to do is they have to play a bend but don't break defense, right? I think when I think about this defense that we have to kind of take on that New England approach, right? Let me keep everything in front of me, right? And don't give up any big plays, and hopefully, my guys start to show up for me, right, on defensive line. We need the D-line to bring some presence. We need the secondary to keep these guys in front. Don't give up the big play. and you're probably going to have an opportunity for a badly thrown ball or ill-advised throw to come your way. That's where we need to get the turnovers and turn it back over to the other side of the ball.
Got to take it.
They said earlier, keep it simple, tackle.
Okay.
Not miss tackles. I'm going to keep it very simple. Do not miss tackles.
All right. You also got to get pressure up front, though. And I think one of the more underrated parts of this team in general for the Steelers is that offensive line. I mean, he starts in the middle with Marquise Pouncey. I mean, this is one of the best in the business at what he does. But how does this defensive line get pressure today?
I think it all starts with number 90 out there. I think it starts with DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, this is a guy who, coming off last week, he saw some different type of violence. You saw a ferocity to his game where he was coming after the running game. He was coming after the quarterback in Carson Wentz. If we can get that same guy to come in here and play against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think we have a chance. Because what does that do? It forces the Steelers to either double team him or slide their line that way. And it'll open up all the different one-on-ones for the rest of the D-line. Now, they haven't been consistent throughout this year in beating one-on-ones. But if we get that same DeMarcus Lawrence from last week, I think it'll give this D-line a chance to get after Big Ben.
All right, so in the game of football, we're all competitors, correct? Mm-hmm. We're all competitors. So I'm going to challenge our defensive line to match the intensity or exceed the intensity of the Steelers' defensive line. And that's a tall order, right? Yes, but if I go in there and I tell these guys, hey, D-Law, hey, anybody that we have in there, really doesn't matter, right? I'm going to say, I need you guys to go out there and go all the way to the wall, right, 100%, right? And if you get tired, tap out, I'll bring somebody else in. But every play that you're in there, I need you to give me everything that you have to try to beat these guys on the offensive line. Okay.
D-Law, bring about 3 other guys with you today and some timely blitzes. Okay. Big Ben has seen it all. You said it, Church. He's seen it all. Timely blitzes. Situational football is the greatest defense we can have. Great situational football.
And even Big Ben, one of the best in the NFL at picking up those blitzes and adjusting at the line of scrimmage. Like you mentioned earlier, it's going to be tough to fool him. He's seen it all. Yes. You're going to have to bring something, but you got to find a way to get pressure. And that's ultimately what ends up happening. We mentioned slowing down James Conner. You have to do that defensively. You have to put up points on the offensive side of the football as well. But whenever it comes to today, do the Cowboys have to play perfect to beat a perfect team?
Man, I'm going to have to say, yeah. They're going to have to play mistake-free football, turnover-free football, and that's something we haven't done since week 1. I mean, we're going out there right now with Garrett Gilbert going against a hellacious Pittsburgh defense who on all 3 levels can take away the ball. Their defensive line rushes probably the best in the league. Their linebackers are fast, and their secondary can take away the ball with the best of them. So for me, we're going to have to play a perfect game, and like we've all said today, I mean, the chips are stacked tall against us, so it's going to have to be a perfect to pull out the win.
So the answer is C. If you don't know what C means, that means yes in Spanish. All right, so yes, you have to do it. Okay? You have to play some tough ball against these guys. And, one thing that you have to do is collectively, all right, collectively, these guys just have to play together. You have to play unbothered football is what I refer to it as, meaning have a short memory. When something good happens for them on the offensive side of the ball, defense come back, bust them in their mouth, get a tough hit so they can say, wow, they weren't bothered by that. Offensively, okay, if something doesn't go your way, you have a negative play, guess what? Come back and get a first down. That's unbothered football. That's staying consistent. That's staying focused on the task at hand.
CC, senor. yes, to my friend over here. He brought it. Hey, everything they've said, I cannot add or take away. Everything these 2 gentlemen said, the Dallas Cowboys will have to do to have an opportunity to win this football game.
The emphasis so high that we went into our bag of Rosetta Stone to bring back out and to say just how important it is to play perfect today. We see some of the scenes out at AT&T Stadium behind us. Nick Eatman's out there right now, and he'll tell us his player to watch for today's game.
Thank you, Kyle. And yes, my player to watch is going to be safety Donovan Wilson. You know, the last few games, he's starting to show up more and more. And sometimes at the safety position, getting your name called isn't always the best thing. You could be the guy chasing someone into the end zone. And certainly the Cowboys have had some coverage bust this season. But really, once Donovan Wilson has gone in there and played and started at safety, I think things have gotten shored up a little bit better for those deep balls. The Cowboys still have their issues on defense, but he brings an aggressive attitude. We saw it last week with a big hit on Carson Wentz and forced the fumble, was able to be alert and get the ball. I think the last 2 games he's had plays on 2-point conversions where he's knocked the ball away at the last minute. So he's making plays on the ball. Of course, they're going to need that and a lot more when you're going up against this high-powered offense with Ben Roethlisberger and all those receivers, including the rookie Chase Claypool, who has really given them a different dimension. But even if it's a James Washington who likes to stretch the field as well, the safeties are going to be tested. Let's see if Donovan Wilson is up for another challenge. Kyle, back to you.
How about Donovan Wilson getting not 1 but 2 mentions in the pregame show this week? That's what happens when you force turnovers, and we saw that last week. He forced a turnover. We see the team behind us getting ready at AT&T Stadium. It's a big-time matchup with a lot of keys to victory today. You got a full pocket full of them today. But we go to our Oikos 000 strong keys to the game. Nate, what you got for yours?
Mine is very simple. You got to be enthusiastic. You got to do your job, and you got to tackle well.
Okay. Saw that enthusiasm last week against Philadelphia. You got to keep that same energy, though.
Yes, you do. And I ain't have no more to say. Be enthusiastic. Next.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and go with the turnover game, okay? I normally go with the line of scrimmage, but I'm going with the turnover game because I feel as if we need 2 turnovers, and 1 in the form of an interception for Big Ben so we can get in his head, and I think we need another turnover from our linebacker core that comes in and knocks the ball out, playing physical football to match this good old Pittsburgh Steelers of physicality.
How many takeaways do you need?
Dos.
Okay. At least 2. See that? Going back to the
Oh man, for me, I'm gonna take a note from Nate here, and we're gonna have to get after Ben Roethlisberger. But what we're gonna have to do is have timely blitzes, because I don't think we can get to him with just the 4 guys up front. I mean, we might be able to get a couple pressures here and there, but I think we have to have timely blitzes from Jordan Lewis, some of the safeties coming in there. But we're gonna have to get after Big Ben, or it's gonna be a long game.
I think my key to the game this week is going to be play turnover-free football. And this is a team that hasn't done that a whole lot this year. Whenever you talk about the Cowboys, 11 fumbles this year. No other team has more than 6, and they have 11 on the year overall. They're minus 11 in the turnover differential as well. So there's our keys to the game. Guys, it's going to be a fun one at AT&T Stadium. Not always you get a chance to knock off an undefeated team. You still have a chance to do that and get a big win in the NFC East. I want to thank everybody involved in our Cowboys pregame coverage. For Nate Newton, for Isaiah Stanback. And hey, Nate, did you bringing out the donut at the end? Did you have that in your hand the whole time? For Barry Church, I'm Kyle Yeomans. We'll see you next time.
Let's
everybody.
go!
The Dallas Cowboys pregame show, live from the Star in Frisco, was brought to you by AT&T. SWBC Mortgage, financial solutions to help you meet your personal and business goals. Visit SWBC.com. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. Want to tour AT&T Stadium? For more information, call 817-892-TOUR or visit DallasCowboys.com/tours.